He was bright, interesting, not just a handsome guy.
Shirley Jones, America's sweetheart, the radiant star of Oklahoma, and the beloved mother figure of the Partridge Family. Yet, behind her famous smile lay a marriage that tested every limit of her endurance. Her husband, Jack Cassidy, was dazzling to the public, handsome, charming, and magnetic. But at home, he operated by a set of rules that slowly, relentlessly tore Shirley apart. For decades, she fiercely guarded his secrets, protecting both his career and their family name. It wasn't until she was in her 90s that Shirley finally spoke with complete honesty, and what she revealed shocked even those who thought they already knew the story. The beginning of a dream quickly turned complicated. Shirley Jones's path to stardom began far from the glitz of Hollywood. Born in 1934 in Charleroi, Pennsylvania, she grew up where watching movies at the local theater was the week's highlight. By age 12, her extraordinary singing voice convinced local teachers she needed professional training. She studied at the Pittsburgh Playhouse, unknowingly laying the foundation for a career that would define her generation. In 1955, she was cast as Lori in the film version of Oklahoma, a role that launched her straight into stardom. At just 21, she held a rare personal contract with Rodgers and Hammerstein, the only performer ever to hold such an arrangement. It was in this whirlwind of opportunity that Jack Cassidy entered her life. 10 years her senior, Cassidy was already a Broadway star, known for his magnetic presence. Their first encounter came during rehearsals for a European tour of Oklahoma. In 1955, Cassidy, though married, introduced himself with bold confidence, walking across the room as if he had known her all along. "My name is Jack Cassidy," he told her, "and it's a pleasure to work with you." Shirley admitted she didn't usually swoon over handsome men, but there was something different about Jack. Beyond his looks, she saw a wit, charm, and theatrical flair that immediately captivated her. When the production reached Paris, Jack invited her to dinner. He promised champagne and escargot, both of which she had never tried. Against her better judgment, she went. That night, after laughter and stories, Jack walked her back to their hotel, kissed her on the cheek, and said words that stunned her. "I'm going to marry you." Shirley reminded him he was already married, but Jack simply smiled and repeated his promise. It was the beginning of a relationship that would thrill, torment, and ultimately haunt Shirley for the rest of her life. By 1956, Jack Cassidy kept his word. He divorced his first wife and married Shirley Jones. At just 22, Shirley became an instant stepmother to Jack's son, David Cassidy, who already showed signs of the charisma that would later make him a teen idol. Their union seemed glamorous from the outside, but beneath the glitter, fractures were already forming. The early years of their marriage were a balancing act between Shirley's skyrocketing career and Jack's restless ambitions. While she won critical acclaim in films like Carousel and Elmer Gantry, earning her an Academy Award, Jack struggled with the feeling that he was being eclipsed. Shirley's crossover to Hollywood and mainstream fame made her the brighter star in the public eye. That imbalance, Shirley would later admit, fueled Jack's insecurities and drove him deeper into behaviors that threatened to destroy them both. Jack Cassidy had always been magnetic, the life of every party, but for him, attention was not just a gift, it was a drug. Shirley would later reveal that he craved constant admiration, and no amount of love or loyalty could satisfy him for long. His flirtations quickly escalated into full-blown affairs. At first, Shirley tried to dismiss them, deeply in love and desperate to keep their marriage intact. But Jack's infidelities didn't stop at women. Quietly, whispers began circulating that Cassidy also pursued relationships with men. Shirley, however, knew they were true. In her later memoir, she openly confirmed that Jack was bisexual, something he admitted to her in private. He told her directly that he wanted to experience everything in life, every passion, every desire. Fidelity, he insisted, was not in his nature. For Shirley, the revelation was devastating. She had grown up with small-town values, believing in loyalty, but now realized she was married to a man who could never fully belong to her. The 1960s became a decade of contradiction for Shirley. On screen, she cemented her status as one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses. Off-screen, she played the beautiful wife, smiling for the cameras, raising their 3 sons and holding their fractured marriage together by sheer will. Yet inside, she admitted, she was unraveling. Jack's betrayals were not occasional lapses, they were a lifestyle. And he no longer bothered to hide them. Friends recalled moments when Jack bragged about his encounters, even in Shirley's presence, as if daring her to protest. She rarely did. Instead, she swallowed her pain, convinced that leaving him would shatter her family. But each year, the burden grew heavier, and Shirley began to lose pieces of herself. By the 1970s, Shirley Jones seemed to embody the American dream. She was cast as the nurturing widowed mother in The Partridge Family, a television phenomenon that debuted in 1970. For 4 seasons, audiences adored her as the picture of stability. The irony, however, was that while she played the perfect matriarch on television, her real family life was unraveling behind the scenes. The success of The Partridge Family only deepened the divide. Jack resented being overshadowed by his wife's fame. Shirley confessed that his sense of inferiority grew so intense, it drove him to infidelity more often than before. His reckless behavior escalated, and he no longer cared about the consequences. Shirley was raising her 3 sons and managing the complicated relationship with her stepson, David Cassidy, who had become a teen idol through the very same show. The public saw a glowing, unified family. In reality, tensions ran high. Jack's double life became impossible to ignore. He would drink heavily, flirt shamelessly, and sometimes boast about his conquests. Shirley admitted that he seemed to almost enjoy flaunting his affairs, testing how far he could push her tolerance. For Shirley, every public appearance became an act of endurance. She smiled for cameras and praised her husband in interviews. Privately, she was heartbroken, humiliated, and exhausted from forgiving betrayals that never stopped. The emotional toll was staggering. Friends later revealed that Shirley often broke down in tears, confessing she didn't know how much longer she could endure it. Yet, she still loved Jack deeply. That contradiction, loving a man who caused her so much pain, defined her marriage. She admitted that he was the love of her life, even as he broke her piece by piece. By 1974, Shirley reached her breaking point. She filed for divorce, ending a marriage that had lasted nearly 2 decades. But the end of their union did not mean freedom from tragedy. What came next would shock Shirley in ways she could never have imagined. When Shirley Jones finally separated from Jack Cassidy in 1974, she believed the storm was behind her. Yet, even after their divorce, Jack never truly left her life. He continued to call, sometimes trying to reconcile. Shirley later recalled that one evening in December 1976, Jack phoned her and asked her to come over for drinks. She declined, unwilling to step back into the emotional chaos. Hours later, the decision would haunt her. In the early morning of December 12, 1976, Jack Cassidy fell asleep on his couch with a cigarette in hand. The smoldering ash ignited the sofa, and within minutes the fire engulfed the room. Jack, only 49 years old, was trapped inside. His death was as reckless and tragic as his life had been, a sudden, fiery end to a man who had lived without boundaries. For Shirley, the news was devastating. She still loved him. In her memoir, she admitted that had Jack not died, she wasn't sure she would have married her second husband. The connection she felt to Jack, no matter how destructive, had never disappeared. His death left her with a mixture of grief, regret, and unresolved love. The tragedy also left an indelible mark on their children. Jack Cassidy's death made headlines, but the public narrative focused on the fire, not the personal wreckage he left behind. Shirley once again put on a brave face, but privately she was left grappling with a haunting truth. She had loved a man she could never truly have, and his reckless choices had destroyed not only their marriage, but also his life. After Jack Cassidy's tragic death, Shirley Jones faced the difficult task of rebuilding her life. In 1977, she found unexpected companionship with comedian Marty Ingalls, Their marriage was filled with clashes of personality and deep affection, providing the stability and devotion that Jack never could. They remained together until Marty's death in 2015. Despite finding love again, Shirley never completely escaped the shadow of her first marriage. Jack Cassidy remained a haunting presence in her memories. She confessed in interviews that she still considered him the great love of her life, even as she acknowledged the pain he caused. For decades, Shirley kept the darkest truths of her marriage private. Hollywood gossip had swirled about Jack's double life, but Shirley stayed silent, protecting his reputation and their children. It wasn't until later in life that she finally began to speak openly. In her 2013 memoir, she revealed that Jack had never once been faithful during their marriage. She confirmed what had long been whispered, that Jack pursued affairs not only with women but also with men. He had told her bluntly that fidelity was impossible for him. Shirley admitted she had endured this reality for the sake of her children, choosing silence over scandal. By the time she was in her 80s, Shirley began to lift the veil entirely. She explained how deeply Jack's behavior had wounded her, leaving her feeling humiliated and diminished, as though she was never enough. She described the agony of playing the perfect wife in public while breaking down in private, and she confessed that she often asked herself why she stayed. The answer, she said simply, was love. Her candor was shocking. By finally exposing Jack's secrets, Shirley reshaped how Hollywood remembered him, not just as a charismatic star, but as a deeply troubled man whose self-destructive appetites left wreckage in his wake. By the time Shirley Jones reached 92, she had nothing left to protect. She finally admitted that Jack Cassidy had lived a double life, unfaithful with countless women and also with men. She revealed how he flaunted his betrayals, confessed that fidelity was not in his nature, and how she endured it in silence for decades. For Shirley, speaking out was not about revenge, but about liberation. After a lifetime of secrecy, she wanted the truth to be known. Yet Shirley never painted him as a villain. Even after everything, she still called him the love of her life. That contradiction, enduring love tangled with endless pain, became her final testimony about their marriage. It was a story of devotion and destruction, told only when age had finally given her freedom. Shirley Jones carried Jack Cassidy's secrets for decades before finally telling the truth. Do you think she should have revealed it sooner, or was she right to wait until later in life? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories.